Hi guys, welcome. You're crazy. Welcome back. We're so happy that you're here. We are excited because we are getting ready and preparing for our road trip coming up, our summer trip, and we're excited to dive into this episode. So,
Yes,
this
the
is an important one.
anticipation of leaving for our summer trip, is making me so excited. I'm jumping out of my skin the last couple of weeks. So we have like 3 or 4 weeks until we leave and we
Yeah.
start to head. And it's our time to where we're recreating, like recreational activities. It's for recreating yourself. And I feel like at the end of the summer, every summer, we look back and we're like, has it been like 3 years over the summer? And we feel like new people.
It's
So
our reset.
I'm excited to reset,
Summer
recreate,
reset.
connect.
So, this episode is all about the topic that maybe you don't like talking about, and that's if for some reason you feel like you have a putting in quotes, bad reading or a bad coaching session. So, if you're an entrepreneur listening to this, you know that there's moments where you feel like you're on a high from a reading that you've just done or a session that you've just done with a client. And then there's other moments where you're like, oh, I could have done better, or it could have been a better experience. So we're going to get into that and really talk about how there's always gold in these moments.
Exactly, and always with the context of that you're a powerful psychic medium or you're a powerful healer and you have a bad reading with a client or all that, right? Because there's a lot of, well, not a lot, but there's psychic mediums out there, there's healers out there, there's coaches out there that are just doing it for the wrong reasons and they're not good at what they do. So when they when they have a bad session, it's probably because of that, right? They're not skilled.
Doing things in integrity.
It's not an integrity. It's not. We're not talking about that. We're talking about more the person who's a powerful psychic medium who has integrity, who's doing a lot of good in the world, right? That
Exactly.
kind of person.
Yeah. And this is one thing, we're going to talk about this together, but of course, you listening, thinking about this, a lot of the times when you are that person that's putting in the work and the development in coaching or mediumship sessions, intuitive healing sessions, you might think that something's going worse than it actually is. So that's a big thing too, is you might have this pressure that you put on yourself that you want everything to be perfect. It's never going to be perfect, but that could be another side to it too.
Exactly.
So.
Perfect example. I go to your platform mediumship events and I'll watch you kill it for like an hour and a half straight. That's a bad word to use with that, but I'll watch you dominate for like an hour and a half straight. Like you'll do awesome, and then afterwards you don't do it as much anymore. You'll find like the few things where maybe you weren't perfect, and maybe like you did something and you noticed that, and like sometimes I even do this too, right? I do this too, to where it's like we have this awesome session, and our human mind will make us focus on the one thing we did wrong.
It's true.
And that's what you're talking about there.
That's what it is. So that can come up. I've corrected a lot of it, but of course there's awareness there when it comes up and I catch myself. But I used to do that all the time. And it was draining. Yeah. It was completely
And we're not talking about that either, right? Because that's a great session. Those are sessions where you had a great session and you're just finding, we're talking about the sessions where it's like sometimes you have to like end it early. Sometimes the person at the end of it, they feel like they lost money or they feel like they're not getting the value out of it. That kind of session is what we're talking about, right? Pretty
Exactly. Because we've worked with hundreds of psychic mediums and healers. So we've heard the stories, we've experienced our own experiences too. So we're just kind of gathering all this that we've kind of found together and kind of put it on the table and share like what actually is going on behind the scenes. So
Exactly.
So I want to talk about something that I've noticed, like a pattern that could come up. Now, when I say pattern, I could count to my fingers how many times this has actually happened. It hardly happens, but when it does, it sticks out to me. So I've had clients come to me, and I would say, what do you think, like 5 or 6 times since I've been doing readings this has happened? Because I
would say if you like once a year at the most or something like that, yeah.
So sometimes people
about 5 or 6 or 7 at the most.
Yeah, and one of the things that has happened is like someone will come to me, they'll either be given a gift certificate or someone will tell them like, oh, I just got the best reading, go and get your reading. They'll come to me and they want the same exact experience as the person that already came to me had, okay? So it could be like 2 sisters getting separate readings. Like one sister goes first and the sister says, go get a reading with her. They come to me, they already know the experience their sister had, and they compare everything to their sister's experience and saying, well, this person came through for her, this person came through, and she was crying, and I feel like I'm not feeling anything. And it's like a wall is put up. And they don't have the same experience because they're comparing a previous situation from someone else having that experience.
Yeah, they're comparing it and they're assuming that it's because you did something wrong as a medium this time around.
Right.
They're not even thinking about themselves and how they are present in it. They're the factor here.
Yeah,
right?
well, and it goes two ways. Like we were talking about earlier, like there's always two sides to the reading. It's not just the medium giving the reading. It's a person on the other end opening up their heart to receive and not being resistant. Like, I don't know if that makes sense. Well, I guess she had a red Mustang, but I mean, who doesn't? You know, like those kind of comments. When I hear that kind of language, like, well, who doesn't work a full-time job or who doesn't have a red Mustang? You know, something specific. I know that language. I stop it in its tracks. So like when I'm feeling like, oh gosh, my heart's shutting down when someone does something like that, I know that I have to vocalize it and call it out and say, wait, I want to stop right here before I go on with the reading and ask you, are you feeling skeptical right now? Or how are you feeling about the reading? And that's when the conversation will come up. Well, I already was a little skeptical before I came in, or I'm just feeling disappointed because I just wanted this information to come forward from my loved one. You know, they have a narrative of how they want it to go before they even go and receive.
And then sometimes you could sense that they're not open right when they walk in, right? And that's when you could call it out right away too, right? Before it even starts.
Yeah. And I've had situations where I thought someone wasn't open. It was a person I'm thinking in particular. And I'm like, I just want to find out, like, are you skeptical? And she's like, actually, I feel so sick because I'm so nervous. Yeah. Like my stomach was hurting before I even got here. I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, let's take a deep breath. And the moment she said it, all of a sudden it released attention. Her nerves, like, just, she was able to relax and receive. And I felt like I could actually get in there and give a reading rather than feeling like I was pushing up against a wall.
Ooh, so how powerful is that to call it out? Because look, if you didn't say nothing, you would have assumed the whole time that it was because she wasn't open. How many times, let's think about that, all the mediums or coaches, listen, how many times have you done a reading or a session and you assumed, without saying anything, without calling it out, you just assumed that they weren't open? Like, go back and reflect in the last year, the last several years. Think about how many of those people were actually, it wasn't that, they were just nervous because they're doing this thing that the average human will never do, right? They're open to talking to their past loved one. Most people are not going to do that. That's vulnerable. Yeah. So of course they're going to be scared. So it's knowing your client, right? You know that these people are coming here vulnerable. They're, you know, some of them are a little skeptical. Some of them are like, what is going on here? So it's like you got to take all that in consideration, right?
Right. And it's when you just said that, it made me think, like, we're so used to doing all these you're doing coaching sessions, I'm doing the readings.
It's normal
to us. Second nature doing it.
It's like, next.
Yeah. Well,
no, seriously. I mean, it's second nature.
Well, that's how it is. It's just like,
it's like you're working if you're working at a fast food place, you're like, you go through the process so much, you're like, it's just what you do.
And you're open to you want to see the healing. So when you're feeling that resistance, like the other person isn't ready, you're like, oh, whoa, okay, I haven't got this in a while. And then you have to kind of prepare your mind to think, okay, we're doing this every day or every week, and we're used to doing it a certain way, and we feel comfortable doing it because it's natural for us, but the person coming in is not always feeling
Here's another question. How many times, and this is for everybody listening too, have you went into a reading or a coaching session to where maybe that day, that week, you weren't feeling as confident you usually do? You're feeling like imposter, you already feeling kind of lower confidence, and you go there, and then that bad reading confirms it. Right? That's why we always talk about mindset and taking care of yourself, because that could happen a lot, right? Like if you're showing up to these coaching sessions or these readings and you're not taking care of yourself, your mental health and all that, it's so easy for you to be attacked, I guess you could call it. Like attacked or like you know, you're vulnerable. Like to where all of a sudden a bad reading can make it so, oh, see, I'm not a good medium, even though it's not true, right?
Right. Well, and naturally, when you're feeling confident, your energy, like when people walk into a room and you feel their confidence, like if you are a feeler, they walk in a certain way, you could feel their energy. It might feel loving. There might be, a confidence with the way that they walk, whatever it may be. But when you're not feeling confident, it's almost like you shrink, like your energy shrinks, your aura goes in. And that isn't beneficial when you're doing a reading. And that's why, or a coaching session, because when you're doing a coaching session, you're opening up, you personally, I know you, you open up intuitively, like on a whole new level.
It's very similar to giving a reading.
Your energy rises to the occasion. So if you're already going in there feeling not confident, it is going to show up in the reading, and it is going to feel kind of wishy-washy, like, well, I think this is the information. I think your dad's here, and it just, the client picks up on that, and it just could steer in a whole other direction.
So it's so important to know your energy before you even do a session.
Exactly.
Because when these things will happen, like they're not, like you said, they've only happened a handful of times. Yeah. The more confident in your energy, you're just not going to draw these kind of people to you. So you'll sometimes, like if it's happening to you a lot, often, check in with yourself, check in with your own energy, your confidence. Like, do you believe in what you're doing? And if you don't, just keep going through the process of developing your skill and the practice, because over time you will get more confident and those people will stop showing up as much. Here's what I realized: 100% of the time that I'm on the phone or on a call, Zoom call with a psychic medium or a healer, and they had a bad session, it was for two reasons. It was either because of what we've already talked about, that the sitter just, after we analyzed it and all that, they weren't open. Like it was like prying teeth. The sitter needs to be open, right? It goes two ways. It was that, or it was just they really had a good reading and a good session, and they were just focused on the wrong things. And then, of course,
you mean the mediums were focused
the medium or the coach was just focused on like the few things they did where they felt like they weren't good. And then, of course, every once in a while, you're human. You might have a bad reading. That's okay. If that does happen to where you have a bad reading, like or you seems bad to you, like know that you're a great medium. Look back at your testimonials. Like do the same stuff you should do every day. Like be very clear on who you are, and continue to do your work, because the law of averages, you're not going to keep giving bad readings. And I don't know. How many bad readings do you think you've given where they were actually bad in the last 7 or 8 years? I think it's not many, if any at all.
But I was like a perfectionist about readings. Like, I want to make sure I get this, and it kind of took over my energy where I would think about it after.
Yeah.
But that's what I would consider like, I would say like a bad moment for myself. Like they were satisfied with the reading, but I wasn't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
True.
So,
and this is all relative too, right? Bad reading. It's like, that's going to mean something different to this person than to you, than to me.
But let me tell you another thing that I've noticed more recently too, which has come up. Because you know how I give, the majority of my readings are on the phone. Like unless they're out of the country, we'll go on Zoom. But other than that, they're on the phone. And then one day out of the week, I'll do readings in person in Tampa. But I started to notice something, that people, that they responded a certain way. Like they're like, oh, I guess that makes sense. Or it would have been like a little bit of a delay. Like I wasn't feeling like their energy was matching with the flow of information. I'm like, wait, let me just stop right here. Because I was thinking they were skeptical. But then I started to recognize that there was a pattern, those people that I was picking up on. And I'm like, can I ask, are you writing right now? And they're like, yes, I am. I'm taking notes. And I'm like, okay, put your pen down. I know you want to take notes, but put your pen down for right now, because what's happening is I can feel that you're in your analytical brain and you're not in your heart space. Like you can't feel your loved one coming through right now. So it's going to be a totally different experience for you, where they would have major healing breakthroughs if they could feel the presence of their loved one standing in the energy of both of us in our space, like in my space and their space. And when they're writing things down, they're in their brain. They're in their analytical. Let me just take notes so I don't forget this. That's like a different kind of energy for healing, for a reading. So when I noticed that shift, I'm like, can I ask, are you writing things down right now? And they literally, like 96% of the time, they are writing it down. So I usually say, wait till the end and then write it down.
It makes sense because this is
So-
a transformational experience.
Exactly.
It's not informational.
No.
There's information, and that's why you said at the end you could write it down.
Right.
But it's just like my coaching sessions, or even I feel like our retreats. You're gonna learn some information and all that, but they're transformational experiences. Meaning, if you're in your head, you're gonna miss it.
You are.
You're gonna miss most of it. So you have to get in your heart. And one of the key signs, and I do it on my coaching sessions, is you call it out. You call out everything. Like I'm saying, like if I feel like I'm prying teeth, I'm like, wait a second. All right, close your eyes, take a deep breath. Let's get in your heart. Let's get centered, because like you said, I could feel when they're in their brain. I could feel when they're resistance. And even in a coaching session, like I need the other person to show up as powerfully as I am. I'm here 1,000% present, and I'm bringing your presence all the way here too. And if it's not here, if you're somewhere else, I'm gonna feel that.
Yeah, you have to
and I have to
guide it.
call it out. And I think that's a key for all these people listening, right? Is like call it out. Like
Don't be afraid.
use your instinct. Use your body as a tool. If your body's feeling closed off, your client's body's probably closed off. If your body's feeling whatever it is, check in with it, and then ask them about it. Call it out, and then like you said, I realize every single time when you call something out, the tension leaves right away.
It's gone. It's like you just call the elephant out in the room. And I've said to those few people that I've had this experience with, like, I just want to ask you, before I go further, I want to ask, do you want to end the reading? I don't mind ending the reading right now, and I'll refund you, and you can go do your research and find someone that, you feel drawn to. Like, that doesn't offend me, but I don't want them to get a reading that doesn't feel like a quality reading. I don't want to give a reading that I feel like I'm walking through glue with, and I don't want them to be disappointed. So I'll say it in that moment with those few people that I've felt. And literally they usually say, like those people that I'm talking about, the small handful, they'll say, no, I want to go further. And then they'll say like, I don't know what's wrong with me. I feel like I've been like really having a tough time. And I just feel like I'm just really having a tough time, and all of a sudden they burst out crying. And I am like, that's interesting. It's almost like they needed that release to know that they were putting up the wall if that was coming forward, So I think it's important. You say to your clients, like, okay, let's just take a deep breath. I know you start your sessions off with that too, just to get them centered. And for me, if I notice that they do have a wall up, I'll say, okay, I know you're not trying to do this, but I want you to take a moment to think of something that makes you happy. Maybe it's puppies, maybe it's babies, and just close your eyes and think about that thing right now, and just to get them loosened up and just get their mind off of the pressure of the reading.
Exactly.
Because it can be nerve-wracking to get a reading, you kind of forget about that, or a coaching session.
Yeah, because the sitter is coming to the psychic medium or coming to the coach, and the coach and the psychic medium is going to the sitter.
Yeah.
Or the client. And what's happening is sometimes we get lost, even us as coaches or psychic mediums, we think that we're the magicians.
Right.
We think that it's like, no, the other person is too.
Yeah.
Right? The person that's showing up, they're actually the powerhouse also. They're actually the
synergy,
magician.
the
so it's like,
triangle
it's both. It's not one, it's like,
and the medium,
yeah, it's
and
not like,
the sitter.
oh, I'm coming to you because you have all the answers, because you are on another plane.
Yeah.
It's like, no, we're both there and we both got to get there. It's like you're not just sitting there and getting a haircut. Like you gotta really show up yourself too.
That's
right?
true.
It's interactive.
It is.
And that's how it works, right? It doesn't work. It's masterminding. It doesn't work unless two or more people are in harmony with each other. And when they're in harmony with each other, another mind starts to come over, and that's spirit.
Yes. And this is the conversation. I don't know if you remember this, but I had this realization, like, I don't know if it was 5 months ago. You might not remember it or not. But I started to realize, you know how sometimes you can lose your train of thought when you're talking? What I recognize is if you're talking to someone that's not really present and really listening to you, just say they're scrolling through their phone, they're like, yeah, I'm listening. If you don't feel that link to that person, like they're not holding space either, like they're not receiving the information, it is a weak link for you.
Yeah.
So you start to lose your train of thought and you can't even think. That's why it's so powerful when you have someone you're speaking to that's present, that's fully giving the attention. Sometimes they don't even have to say anything. They could just sit there and give you their presence, like during your coaching sessions or during a good conversation with a friend. sometimes you could leave with a friend like, oh my God, that was like the best day ever. And they didn't do much talking, but they held that space of listening. It's the link. It's the same thing with a reading. So it's something to think about. That's why presence is so important when it's with friendships, business relationships, and, the clients. I've had friends in the past where they're on their phone when we're out to dinner, and I'm saying friends, one friend in particular, and I didn't feel like I was being heard, and it was frustrating, and I couldn't think clearly. My thoughts were stumbling. Then it shows up for me too, because that's something that I've done in the past. You know what I mean? So it's something to think about when you're working with clients and friendships and relationships.
Yeah, and thinking about like who's your ideal client. Like, so it's somebody that's open.
Exactly.
When they show up to me, they open. And that doesn't even mean it needs to be true in this person's life. Like maybe there's someone that's closed off all the time, but when they show up in front of you, they open up, because that's who your ideal client is, and you're creating these people, whether they're like that before they come to you or not. So you're getting very clear, when people come around me, they open up.
Exactly.
Right? And I draw to me people that are already open as well.
Yeah. And you hold the space for them, and then they also rise to the occasion with their energy too. There's another topic, there's something that I want to bring up that I've thought about this year specifically, because I was having a conversation at the retreat. I don't know if you were in the room at this point of the conversation, but it was about recording readings. And in the past, I used to let people to record the readings, and I was fine with it. Recently, when you use the word transformation versus information, it's something that I've thought of when it comes to recordings. Because I think back to moments where I've recorded readings, like I've received a reading. I remember receiving a reading from this angel lady years ago. Like my mom connected to her through someone else, and she was giving our family readings and friends. And she gave me a CD with the reading. Now, during the reading, I felt the energy of the reading. I felt like it was powerful. Like I was sitting there and I was so open and I was receiving. I can't tell you what she said. I don't remember. But I remember after the reading, I went to listen to the CD and I'm like, that's all she said? Like, okay, what was in there that I love so much? And it was like the magic of the reading, that transformation, that presence that took place in the reading with the angels, her and me. It didn't feel the same when I listened to the recording. So I kind of changed the outcome of what I felt from before for a moment. And I thought about that even with recording readings for my clients now. I don't want them to record the reading, because if they go and show their friend or their family member a reading, listen, grandma came through and this is what she said, and their person listened to the reading, but they weren't there for the presence of spirit in the moment, they're not going to feel the same. It's not going to be the same. It just doesn't. It's not the same energy no matter what you do. It's
like taking a video or a vlog of your vacation and it's going back to your friend. Hey, look at this.
Right.
They're going to see it, but they're not going to even be close to experiencing what you experienced there.
Right. And you can feel like the energy of some vlogs.
You can feel it.
Like even like when
but it's still not the same.
Like my platform events.
Yeah.
Like when I had a video guy go and record the event. Some video people are very good at capturing the facial expressions and the energy. And when people watch the video, they're like, I have goosebumps. I feel transformed. But they can never get exactly what it's like to be in the room.
Yeah.
So I'm going against maybe what 90% of mediums or clients want, or, with recording the reading. But I don't allow recordings anymore because of that. That's one of the reasons. But I feel like it's important to think about, like, if you are a psychic medium, like, are you doing this for your client? Or are you doing it for you? Like, why are you recording? Do you want to do that? So I have clips of my mediumship events, but when it comes to private readings, I feel like it's a transformational experience. You need to be there for it. Mm-hmm. It's a moment thing.
Now, if one of your students who's a medium too watching it, she's learning, they're learning, and you could get a lot of value from it.
The reading.
But
That's
I get
different.
it. But the person, like I say, like I go get a reading and I start to get in my head analytically as I'm watching or listening, and you switch it like you did, and you start to, and that's why I don't like my clients to record our coaching sessions
and
either.
And then you overanalyze
because they're transformational. And it's like, what you need to get is in you already. It's already in you. Just trust that.
Yeah.
Trust that. You're in a new space now. There's nothing else you need to go back and get. Anything you need to remember, you will remember too.
It will come up again, or you'll remember. It will be triggered inside of you. I'm all about, like, I have taken notes on readings. Like when I've done practice readings with other mediums, I'll take notes and I'll go back and read them. And I'll read them so from the brain. Like I won't even, it's just like I'm reading notes like it's like a detective's working. You know, it's like a different type of feeling. But I feel like it's valuable. I like to read it. But the recordings, that's how I feel about it right now. Next year it might change, but that's what I feel.
Well, and if the average person could take that recording and use it in a powerful way to where they're not over analyzing it, but like us, we're all humans, so it's like our human self starts to take over, and that's what it is too. But I will say, like, I'm going to be sharing something most likely today of an old platform event. Like I already planned on doing that. And it's something like you might be able to feel it, but you're not going to be able to feel it like you were in the room. Yeah, and that's different. That's powerful.
Or you're the one that's receiving the reading. Yeah. When you're receiving the reading, that's a whole nother story. So it's something to think about.
Well, it reminded me, like whenever you said you listened to your reading afterwards, when you were in the reading, you were open. You were in it. You were open. When you watched reading, you were probably shut off, it sounded like, and then probably in your head more.
Yeah,
at least.
And then you start
you're
to
watching
second
it from your
guess,
head.
like, oh, maybe she meant this. But when you're hearing information from a coaching session, you're hearing the words, but you're having the energetic experience and shift that's taking place in the body at the same time. That's what makes it a transformational experience. So, something to think about. So, just knowing, guys, listening to this podcast episode, think about, like, is it truly a bad reading? Or is it a lesson for me if I'm the medium? Or is it a lesson for me if I'm the client? Like maybe I need to show up a little bit more open, or maybe I just had a bad day, you know? But there's so many ways that it's not to shame yourself, it's to reflect and become aware of this. We hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we did. If you liked it, leave a 5-star review on iTunes, and remember, subscribe to our YouTube channel too.
If you can think of anyone else that would love this episode, share it with them right now on social media or email. And remember, getting results is a process of learning, applying, and reflecting. Stay consistent and continue to grow every day.